We are so happy that you wanted to learn more about us. I am Beth, and this is Dale, and we are the people of Paws for Humanity Animal Sanctuary. We want to thank Michiana VegFest for inviting us to speak today. We have met so many amazing people, and I think it's just kindred spirits in understanding that we are all connected. We all impact each other, not just as people, but with our animal friends, and really the environment and the whole planet. So it's just been a delight all day, and we're really happy to share what we are doing in the world to try to keep that connection going. So I will kick off introductions, a little bit about who we are, and more important, who our animals are. We had the initial idea for the sanctuary, but it's really our animals that have shaped what Paws for Humanity has become. My name is Beth Bollenbach, and I'm a social worker. I worked for 30 years in Chicago in healthcare. I started in the height of the HIV pandemic. And so I worked a lot with people when it was still a life-threatening illness, and the stresses and the ability to navigate the healthcare system was really hard. And I moved into private practice because I wanted to have more time with people so that they could kind of come back to themselves instead of how much the pressure drives us of everything we have to do to meet the demands of our daily lives. As I continued to work with grief and anxiety and loss and change, I saw how counterproductive it was for people to leave my office and be barraged with the energy of the 3 million other people living in Chicago. And so I started picturing what it would be like to do my work in a park, in a field, walking with people, having a chance to really not only exhale and download, but then to really connect and be present. And the more I thought about that, the more I looked into holistic healthcare. I looked into Eastern, both medicine and spirituality. And I decided that that's what I needed to move towards. So I'd come out to Michigan, actually outside of Three Oaks, Michigan, and visited a friend, and I said, this is it. This is where I can do things in nature. So I actually bought a little house out in New Troy, thinking that one day I would retire to doing wellness work and workshops and retreats. And then I met this guy.
Hello, I'm Dale Welling. I am the other half of Miss Beth. And I'm proud to say that I am a homegrown product of the South Bend, Michiana area. I was born here. I went to school here. I'm proud to say I am an honors graduate from Riley High School, as well as Bethel College. I graduated cum laude. The reason why I'm so proud is when I was in elementary school, I found out I had to learn differently than everyone else. See, I was born with dyslexia, not the type that everyone knows where you flip words, but where you drop words. So from that, I've always dreamed about finding ways of learning, because I was told that I would never graduate school, never graduate high school, don't even think about college. And luckily I said no. I was going to find a way. So I dreamed of a place where I could work with people that could understand me, that could help me get over my hurdles, so that I could learn, so I could work with others and meet my goals and fulfill my dreams. That is why this is such a wonderful place. We wanted a sanctuary.
Yeah. And the night Dale and I met on our first date, he brought up his dream of actually working with horses, with children, because he had worked with kids in 4-H and with horses. And I had shared then that sounds like it works for me because I want to do this stuff in nature. And we both recognized that what animals bring is the opportunity to get out of our pesky left brain, overthinking, underconnecting, right, worlds. And so we talked, and we kept dating, and we talked, and then we got married, and we kept talking about this. And so eventually we decided, well, we need to start looking for property because it has to be just the right place. And we found a working alpaca farm just outside of Three Oaks, Michigan, with a couple that wanted to retire. And friends put us together because they could not find a sanctuary that would guarantee keeping their herd of alpacas together after they got there. And they'd been there for 20 years, so this was like third generation animals that were living there. They'd never known another home. They had never left to go to a vet, because alpacas don't really like to be handled unless you really, again, train them differently, right, socially. And so they thought they were going to have to live there until all the animals died. And that just doesn't sound like that's a right action plan either for the people or for the animals, that you're just sitting around waiting. That's bad energy, right? And so the more we thought about that and heard of other people that either had problems rehoming animals or animals that had been bounced around so many places that of course their regulation was up, of course they were more reactive. And then the animal got a bad rap, like they had a bad personality, when they were just maybe not completely traumatized, but certainly not trusting anymore. So that's when we realized, yep, we're going to be an animal sanctuary first, and we're going to pay attention to the people after we know the animals are okay. So the final idea was born. Our mission is about people helping animals, helping people. It's synergy. And I think that's what Life Force Energy is really about. So the animals brought us back home to that. If we want to provide a sense of security and connection of peace, it can only happen if the animals feel that first, and if the land resonates with it. So, just to get a sense of our menagerie, from the original 13 alpacas and 2 chickens that we inherited, we have since then taken in 5 more alpacas, 8 goats, 1 of which was born there because we took in a pregnant nanny, a quarter horse, a pony, 3 donkeys, a feral cat that gave us 7 litters of kittens before she agreed to sit down in a crate so I could close the door. And after we got her fixed, she actually hung around for a few years, which was lovely. We had, believe me, there's a lot of stories there we don't have time for today, but it was fascinating. We got 3 more feral cats that just wandered into our colony in the heyday, and we managed to get them at least fixed. And they have wandered off, but 2 of them come back to visit every once in a while. So we try to keep track of them as we can. We have had 22 chickens, which includes 6 roosters, also stories, 9 ducks, and 3 Great Pyrenees dogs that you will hear more about. We've lost some animals along the way. We did adopt out many of the kittens that were born to us, but we vetted people. We call all of our animals people, by the way, so just know what we're saying. But no animal that was rehomed to our sanctuary will ever be adopted back out. That is our commitment to them. So we are currently home to 34 to 36 animals, again, depending on if any of the wandering ferals are in town. So today, we would like to explain the 3 arms of our mission, which is sanctuary, connection, and community. Okay. So we bought the property in 2017. We incorporated in 2018. We got our 501c3 in 2019. And really, we did have to focus on defining what sanctuary is, because depending on who you talk to, every sanctuary is run pretty differently, right? They have different animals, they're different sizes. Some of them are rescue, some of them are more like us. And so we had to decide what it felt like for us. So we really focused in on the idea of it being a safe haven. It's a place of protection from danger and distress where you can be yourself. There is serenity on our land. There's a sense of security, of being able to relax and simply be. This is true for the animals that live there, and it's true for the people that visit. We are not a petting zoo. We are not a shelter. We are not a rescue. We don't have the facilities or the staff to take in animals needing immediate placement or immediate urgent medical care. We also are not going to have our animals stay anywhere they are uncomfortable. So when we say we're not a petting zoo, it doesn't mean that our animals don't socially interact. It means that we interact with them on their terms. We take the time to help our animals acclimate, to learn their personalities, their individual needs, and to let them get comfortable. And if need be, sometimes we have to teach some of them some boundaries so that they don't overwhelm somebody else out in the fields, right? Dale, do you want to add anything else?
Again, it's very important to let people know that we're not a petting zoo. We are a sanctuary with living beings on our property, and that has the same respect for us as we have for them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. So I'm smiling because I just saw the picture of Billy. Billy and Janie were the two goats that we first brought onto the property. And Janie was pregnant with their daughter, Gabby, who's awesome. And Billy was not so awesome. Billy was 2 years old. He had not been fixed before we started talking with the owners of the hobby farm that had him there. Billy lived outside in a small fenced-in area, and all of the female goats on the property lived in the barn and had a different area. And in the summer, they would all, or actually in the spring, they would all get together because the hobby farm wanted Billy to sire for a new generation. By the time he was 2 years old, he had those beautiful horns, and he was everything you've heard male goats can be. Luckily, he was a Nigerian dwarf, so it was adorable to watch how angry he would get or how pushy he would get, but he was intimidating to kids. And so the hobby farm didn't want him there anymore because of his aggressive tendencies. So I said, A, let's make sure he's gelded. B, we don't have any other animals here yet. It's the perfect first foray for us. So he got there, he could be sweet, and the second he wanted something from you, he would just start butting. He could take his horns and hook around your legs and topple you over. Well, if I wasn't paying attention, so I learned quickly. But we both had bruises around our legs and stuff. And it's really easy to get frustrated and think that he's a jerk, but he wasn't a jerk. He didn't know how else to communicate with us, right? And so Dale has, grown up on farms, has handled farm animals before, and he knew how to just whoomp in his place. And if he needed to, he would help guide Billy along, and he could pick him up and take him if he needed to, like you can with a really little kid, right? Well, I don't have that kind of arm strength, and in my own boundaries, I don't want to arm wrestle my animals. I don't want to go tit for tat with them. So I decided I was going to figure out, okay, what's the other way that I can help teach him to respect me while I respect him instead of trying to dominate him? And I bought books, and I looked online, and I talked to other farmers, and I talked to other animal people. And I got to tell you, the majority of the advice I got was, you got to overpower him. You have to win the fight and lay down on top of him. And I'm like, no, I don't. So I said there had to be another way. And then I learned that goats are much like cats. They don't like water very much. So I went out into the pen with my squirt gun and my cup and my bucket of water. And I said, we're going to see how this goes. And there was a day that he just was trying to push me into a corner. So I got the squirt gun out first, and I found out that he didn't like it, but it was a game to him, like it is with little kids. He was like, okay, how can I get around this, right? So then I took the cup of water and I dumped it on top of his head, and he didn't like that, but that was like saying on guard to somebody, like we're gonna fence. So he was like, okay, lady, bring it, right? And again, not mean, not aggressive, good animal, but he didn't know how else to be. So he started to come at me again, and he did the little chargy thing, and he did the rearing up thing, and I moved out of the way. But I'm like, this can't continue. So I picked up the bucket and I just dumped the whole bucket over his head. And he ran to the far corner of the barn, and he shook off all the water, and he just stood there. So I'm like, okay. I walked up to him. He didn't react. I walked all the way up to him. He didn't react. And I was able to pet him on his neck, and he didn't move. That was day one. He was okay for a little while, and then eventually, of course, he tried to test me again. He got another bucket of water on him, and this time, as I stood there, he slowly started walking back to me. And he wasn't aggressive, and he stood by my side. So we started walking around more together, and I probably ended up dumping a little more water on him, but not for that long. And Billy ended up being such a sweet boy. Now, he could get too curious and push his way around, and with those horns, we also learned about putting the tennis balls on the end or putting the pool noodles on them so they can't harm anybody else. And we wouldn't let a toddler in the pen with him. But for the rest of his days on the farm, we didn't have another match of who was alpha. There was a mutual respect. Now, granted, I still had a bucket of water in the corner, but I didn't have to use it anymore. And it was never something that hurt him. And it was only, again, like Pavlov, you do this, this is what happens. right? And so I just think he's a great example of we have to really pay attention to who's in front of us. And at the same time, I don't want to become a person that I don't want to become while I try to figure it out. So that's the level of respect that we try to teach with this. I know, isn't he handsome? Well, Billy and Dale, but.
Speaking of handsome, one of our first animals, once we got the farm, is Pepe. Pepe is what I call the 900-pound guard dog. He loves everybody. He wants to make sure everyone has a good time. Pepe is a quarter horse. When we got him, he was 15 years old, looked like a 5-year-old. He's now 20. Still looks like a 5, 6, 7-year-old. And he still has that love for people. But like all of us, you know what? There's times he needs to be by himself. And the thing about sanctuary is that we want to create a space for grace. Allow animals and people to be themselves, right? Pepe is very curious. This is a cameraman from WSBT wanted to do a story on us. And as you could see, Pepe was trying to help him out. There's a little screen on a camera, and he couldn't believe it because he would look at where the camera was shooting, and he could see it through the screen, and then you look back down, and poor Mark was getting more help than he needed. But that's Pepe. You're on his territory. You're in his home. And it was wonderful how they really did work together. And a couple times he got nudged, and Bart goes, yeah, he was right. It was a bad shot. Okay. But it's wonderful to see animals and people work together. So when you come to our place, one of the first things we're going to show you is red light, green light. A simple kids game, right? And think about it. You want to come in with respect for the animals. Because you know what? If I have 25 to 30 people coming up to your door and say, hey, we're going to come and visit you,
Right
you're
now.
going to be a little shocked. So are the animals. We want to do it in a way that is respectful, that is caring, and is very much kind. So the first one we're going to show you is green light. Green light means the animals are ready for you. They're wanting to say hello to you just as much as you want to say hello to them. So green light is where they're always interested, they're looking, sometimes they even come forward if they get a chance. Red light is when we stop. When we see animals starting to walk away, we take our time. And one of the first things I share with them is we're going to go up slowly. They've never met you before. Maybe they have, but it'd be only once. It's been a while. So we're going to let the animals get used to you. So if we see people walking away, we slow up. You know what? And if they walk away completely, that's fine too. That just means it's not their day to meet anyone. And that's their right. But that's the great thing about having 34 animals. There's always someone there that wants to play.
So these are our 3 Great Pyrenees, and these animals teach us the most about red light, green light. These girls were living in the woods south of Three Oaks, Michigan, for about 6 months before a family managed to coax them into their backyard. They were part of a group of 7 to 9 Pyrenees that were found wandering wild that year. So we don't know if it was an escape or if it was a dump or what the issue was, but there were a lot of Pyrenees, and they had been without people for a long time, and they had learned to survive by being together. The family that brought them in couldn't care for 3 Pyrenees outside forever. They were very skittish. They had been around people. They weren't totally wild, but they were very nervous, especially of men or a domineering kind of demeanor over them. They had taken them to the vet, found out they were about 1.5 years old. They were all siblings. They had contacted animal control. They had posted all over social media, and nobody claimed them. They had gotten a few calls from farms that would take 1 or 2, but nobody that would agree to take all 3 of them. Animal control said the best way to see if these dogs ever bond with people is to separate them. and hopefully they will over time. And when that post hit Facebook, I had to talk to Dale. I'm like, no. These girls learned how to not only survive, but it was just so clear in seeing them how they gave each other courage and strength and comfort and love. And if we couldn't help any other animal on this planet, I know we've already done our job. Because we went down there and saw them every day for a week. We then brought our dogs down, just sitting on the ground for long enough they would come up and sniff. They got along great with other animals, but it was clear they didn't know the domestic dog's socialization skills. They didn't know downward dog, they didn't know flip over on your belly, so they would freak out and they were skittish. They ran away at everything. And again, Pyrenees, yes, they're great farm guard dogs, but they lead by intimidation. They bark everywhere, and they bark and they herd, and they bark and they herd, and they run the perimeter. They're not aggressive animals. And so we decided, yep, we can do this. Let's bring them up to the sanctuary. So we brought them home, and they did not cross a threshold into a barn for 3 months. We had the food inside the door. We had beds for them. I was all excited. Of course they didn't. So they dug a little hole in the corner so they could lay down and watch in 3 directions, just like they're sitting like that together. Sometimes they sit like a little 3-headed monster. And that's where they stayed for a while. So we brought their food and their water to them, and then we slowly put it more places so they could start meandering around. Now that was 3 years ago. So at this point, little by little, we have worked with them. We are doing this completely at their pace. Now, when I go out into the field, all the dogs come running to me. But if I keep moving towards them, they'll still back up with me. I can come to them, and sometimes they will lean forward, which gives me permission to pet them. Other times they'll stand there, and if I reach my hand out, they'll touch. Other times, the second I move, they're like, not quite yet. And then I walk away, and they're right behind me. They're curious. And every once in a while, one of them, Marshmallow, will walk by my side and then just kind of run into me, letting me know it's okay to touch her now. I don't know how long it's going to take before they hate a leash. They do have collars on them. I don't know how long it'll be before we expand the communication more. But there are times that they'll play with Dale and other times they won't. Because he's the guy that goes out there and makes a lot of noise and has to take care of the animals all day, right? And we have a lot of volunteers that come through, and they're closer to some than others, but they're not domesticated dogs completely now. And it's just been wonderful because the way that we teach red light, green light is because when everybody comes to the sanctuary, they run up front because they have to bark to let us know visitors are there. Sometimes they run up to let us know we're there. They bark. So as people come in, they're like, oh, dogs, and they immediately start walking towards them. Little kids let go of their mom's hands and start running, and we say, stop. And then we teach red light, green light. And we share the story of the dogs, and we say, as we walk, they'll follow us, and we'll see how close they let us get. But that's true of all of our animals here. We don't walk up. We don't presume submission. We don't presume that they know our language. We teach them how to look at the animal to see what the animal wants. And it's just a lovely organic way to do that. So I can talk for days. That's why I wrote notes, because I'll just ramble. But I have to say, every time that they get more excitable about seeing us, and the first time that I sat in the field and one of the dogs laid down and put her paw on me, that taught me, right? That's what the relationship really is. We don't need all the words. We don't need all of the symbolism. We just need to be there and be present. And I think that's how sanctuary gets to feel. And if we let ourselves stay there long enough and slow down and not be busy and bustly, that's how we get to feel more too. And that's actually what Dale and I want to bring more into the world. So, a couple of great little animal stories. We're going to talk next about connection itself. But before we move on, we just wonder if anybody has any questions for us. Yes? Yes, we are open in the summer on Saturdays, and We can't be open in the spring because it's total mud. So we do open it for open house hours, and we do small tours. And if people want to do a longer tour and get more education, we are happy to do that privately, and it'll be weather dependent. But you can also email us through the website, and we can arrange for that as well. Yeah.
So does that have to be on a Saturday, or can that be?
A private tour could be other times. Just to let you know, as we said, our professions, we both still work full-time to make this happen, and we are a volunteer-run organization, so it'll be when somebody's available to be there. And so Dale can do evenings, I can do a couple of daytimes, so we figure it out as we go. Yeah, so thank you for that. Okay, so the main thing that we hope when you do come to visit is that you do feel that connection. And as we lead people to the pastures and barns, we share information about each animal group to teach how they communicate, what the animals are looking at, to highlight for people how to be aware of how they're presenting. And we look at the energy and the behaviors and the posture of each animal group. Oh, you do. That's our Roy. He's going to be 28 years old this year. He is the last alpaca from when we first bought the property. And he's pretty old for an alpaca, even one that's treated really well in a sanctuary. So we are just thrilled for how well he's doing.
Normal alpacas live from 15 to 18 years of age.
In the wild, yeah. And
He
even
is
in
28.
Yeah. So
The only
we're
reason why
happy.
we don't have them in Guinness World Book of Records is because we don't have a birth certificate.
Yeah, we can't prove how old he is.
So we can't prove,
Yeah.
even though they gave us his birthday.
Yeah. So in nature, alpacas are low man on the food chain. They are 100% prey. They've got nobody smaller than them around. So they feel safety in numbers. They are a real herd animal. And they try to show their strength by banding together. If one is off and gets distressed, they have a wonderful little high-pitched kind of call. So the others all kind of rear up and look around, and then they all join each other. Alpacas even have communal bathroom space, and that's both in the barn and out in the fields. And that's also instinctual, that if they all go to the bathroom in one place, if one is going and facing that way, somebody else will join them and face the other way. And that way there's one big place, so any predators walking by will say, there's a lot of alpacas here. I don't think I can pick one off. So again, they don't need a big left brain. They know how to survive, and they know that they need to survive by sticking together. So red light, green light works great for them because it's very clear. If you walk too fast, they'll just go away. If you really walk fast, they will go to a corner. And in general, alpacas are more kind of detached observers. They're not cuddly. They don't really want to be pet like dogs are. But you see a lot more now in sanctuaries and in petting zoos because people have domesticated them. Again, as they were very young, they got used to it. But that doesn't mean that that's who the animal is naturally. That's what they've been taught. And that's what we want to just educate people on, right? Yeah.
So this is Tamara. One of the first times that we decided that we were going to let a group come in to introduce our animals, it happened to be a local Cub Scout group. What we didn't realize is that as we were introducing the children and the scout leaders to our goats to start with, what the dynamics were. The kids were excited to come in naturally and they wanted to see the goats. And this young man that you see in the picture here, he was always by my side, right? Never said a word. That's okay. This is a new environment, right? But as we got into the alpacas, Tamara comes walking up without hesitation, which is rare for an alpaca, and gives the young man a kiss on the nose, right? Naturally, the child turns around and says, "What was that for?" And I said, "It was a kiss. Didn't it feel good?" Surprisingly enough, he asked more questions. The mom couldn't believe it. She ran off and got the father. As he was asking more questions, well, why did she do that? She wanted to say, "I love you." Didn't it feel good? And he kept asking more questions, and then the mother and the father came back up. What I didn't realize was Tamara saw something in that child. He went to speech therapy for 3 years to get him to talk. They knew he could talk, but he just wouldn't. It wasn't until she gave him a kiss on the nose that he put it together. Without request, without begging, he turned around and turned to his parents and said, "I love you." And that was the first time the parents ever heard that without some sort of coaxing. He did it naturally. That is the power of a sanctuary. The other thing we love are the goats. Goats are great with kids because they help teach socialization.
And unlike alpacas, goats are exactly the opposite. They are assertive and playful and curious and frisky, and they will teach you that you have to have boundaries, as I've already shared about Billy. So what I really want to say about the goats is, yes, you have to know the species, right? These are really assertive animals. But I think animals get a bad rap when they don't behave the way that's convenient for us. So everybody that says, oh, don't turn your back on a goat, or goats are jerks, or, you can't get them to do anything. It's not true. You just got to make it a game and they will follow, right? Well, or treats, of course. And our donkeys. We have 3 lovely ladies, and we have a donkey whisperer who is sitting in the audience today as a volunteer, and she leads the donkey part of our tours and assists in our group work. Many people think that donkeys are just like horses, and although they're both equine, they are different species that originated in different continents and in different landscapes. And so the main thing we teach about all equine is that you really kind of want to make sure you kind of have an arm's distance as you approach them, because A, they don't see right in front of their face, they don't see their tails, and they don't really look at their hooves to make sure they don't step on your feet. So we want to make sure that you have that awareness. But we also have recognized that, donkeys can get bad raps for being stubborn. And I will again say it's because they don't do what we want when we want to. And I'll share a little bit more about why and how their nervous system is different and how they protect themselves differently than horses later. I know. So on the left, we have Pepe again. And how can you look at this guy without being somewhat impressed, right? He is actually at the small end of a quarter horse, but many are intimidated by the larger animals. And so we teach those protection things, and we slowly, if people are interested, let them meet Pepe. And if somebody doesn't want to, they don't come in that area. People can do things at their own pace also. We also have Danny, who is a pony, and who actually came to us from a woman who had moved and no longer had space in a barn for him. But he had been around little kids and toddlers and grandkids, so he is just patient as all get out, I would say most of the time. And it's wonderful to have them, and Dale will talk more about them specifically when he talks about animal-assisted services. But the one thing I want to say in this area as far as how to read the animals and realize how you're being is that the horses can sense you. Horses, donkeys have really great hearing. Horses can hear your heartbeat over 4 feet away. They can sense your energy field much further away than that. And so when I thought about that, I wondered what other animals can hear our heartbeat? Like, what else is going on here? And when you think of some of the medical service dogs, obviously dogs have a great sense of smell also, but dogs can hear your heartbeat about 4 feet away too. Just sitting there with you. That's how sometimes they know when you get upset or they know when you get excited. Cats can also hear your heartbeat. They probably need to be right next to you on the couch, so they can sense your mood. They know when something is changing. And I love sharing that.
And this is one of my favorites. We have ducks and we have chickens, and believe it or not, they're therapy too. As you see, I'm tossing Miss Piggy, who was requesting to go into the pond. I wasn't being mean.
They play airplane every day.
She loves her time in the pond. We also have chickens. And believe it or not, kids naturally have 20 questions about a chicken. We've even had kids come out and sit down and read a book, and a chicken was right there. the mom would turn around and tell us, we can't get her to read at home, but put a chicken around her close, she'll sit there and read all day. Again, space of grace. But our real story is how all these animals work together, which is what we call animal-assisted learning, or ASL. We don't always know what the story is when people come up and come through our gate. In this case, it was generally a very slow day. It was just Beth and I. We weren't expecting anything, and the girls, as usual, barked like crazy when the car pulled up. We tried to calm them down, and it was okay, because as the people got out, parents and 2 boys got out of the car, the girls settled down as they got close to the... See, the girls knew the story before we did. The family comes in, we did introductions, and we shared that, you know what, don't worry about the girls because they're more scared of you than we are of them. And the great thing about this was, as we're talking to the parents, we did not realize the boys were actually petting the girls.
Petting them.
Petting them.
They'd been there like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't even at that time go up and pet the girls, and I fed them, right? They were petting him. And we were amazed. What we didn't know was the parents came up and talked that they were part of a public shooting. No one got hurt, but they were still traumatized, and they had to get out of town. They came to visit us. When they heard about us, they did not know what they would expect. And to be honest, we were just starting out. We didn't know what to expect either. But the lessons we learned that day was awesome. See, just like the girls wanted to visit with the boys and let them know that they're okay, this is a safe place. As we started to talk about red light, green light, and we turned to go to the alpacas, who normally is a field away, and we'd have to walk to them, they were already walking up to the family. They encompassed the family. They circled the wagons, so to speak. They could feel and understand they were scared. This doesn't happen all the time. Matter of fact, one of the things I tell people is we got to be careful. We want to settle down. I want you to push your heels down, lift your toes up slightly so you'll stay grounded. That way the animals will know that you are grounded. You're not going to get overly excited, and you're also going to be slow to go. Well, we got to the goats, and obviously the goats wanted to see him because they had food. And between the dogs, the alpacas, the family knew it was a safe spot. They started loosening up as they played with the goats. And then we got to the equine. Pepe, my huge 900-pound watchdog, was not going to let anything happen to the mom. He stood next to her. And she didn't realize it. She just had a bundle of emotion. And she went up and hugged him around the neck and cried and cried and cried. He didn't move. I can't explain it. There was flies that day. He did not move. He didn't swat his tail. He stood there for her. The donkeys came out and they circled the family as well. They love to be scratched behind the ears or on the butt. They love to be scratched. But they leaned in on with that family just to let them know they're in a safe spot. This is a miracle of a sanctuary. Can we promise that every time we have people come out? No. Because we all come from different experiences. What's amazing with the animal-assisted learning is animals will mirror what you're feeling. As animal facilitators, we interpret what is going on. And everyone has a unique story. Horses can't remember names, but they remember experiences. And from this experience, that family could come back and then follow suit again. Mm-hmm. This is the key to bringing things together and building a community.
Yeah. So we hope through these stories you can see how wonderful it is to have the variety of animals as opposed to really just thinking equine assisted or dog therapy, because you don't always know who needs what or what animal will be available. It's also interesting that if we are focused on a person and the person has a certain issue, they can find an animal that reflects them. Or sometimes they can find an animal that reflects something they have trouble with, right? It can go the other way. And we can work with that in a non-threatening, normalizing way with curiosity, and by talking about how the animal handles it, we can increase people's perspective without adding more defensiveness, without adding more re-triggering, right, of deregulation. And so it really is a wonderful, just human way to be able to look at ourselves and figure out how to stay connected to others. So one last story. I always share why I love the donkey so much. And it's because, again, we're a farm animal sanctuary. All the animals we're talking about are prey. And a lot of our animals are reactive to us, you know, and think about it, like they look you in the eye. When a horse is upset, it might rear up, it might run away, or it might just look around at you. The goats are always like, what's going on? What's going on? The donkeys just stay right here. I could scream up here and they don't go like this. They might walk away from me, but they are non-reactive that way. And we found out from our donkey whisperer that it's because since they actually came from the desert land and they walked miles and miles and miles and foraged for food, and their hearing is so good that they can I share this?
Sure.
Okay. He likes to share too because he makes people guess. But they can actually hear up to 60 miles away if there aren't like trees and buildings and stuff in their way. That is, again, so that they could hear if something's going on. They could hear water from really far away if they needed to find water. They could hear where other animals were. And if there was a predator coming, they didn't just go blah and run the other direction, because donkeys don't run fast like horses do, right? And they might not know how long it is to a different place. So they would stand there and they figure out, again, with their hearing and with what they know about where they are, what's my next best move? So donkeys aren't stubborn. Donkeys need you to show them why it's good for them to do something. Donkeys are fine making their own decisions, thank you very much. And I love that, because when I want, and again, like Dale said, when I go out there, sometimes it's so awesome. The three girls will like make a triangle around me, hard to get out of if they want to stay, but they lean in and they love their scratches and it just feels so great. But I'm a person and I'm an eye contact person. I'm used to having dogs and stuff, so I like seeing them. That means I got to go sit down, or I got to look at them like this and like get on their eye level. And they don't need to look me in the eye to love me. So why am I making them? You know? So it's really cool when we know more about like where the animals really come from and what they need and who they are. I don't think we judge them quite so much. Any other thoughts?
So it takes a community to keep a sanctuary going. When we first started this, we wanted to build a barn. It took, we had an estimate of $250,000. Unfortunately, we started this project before COVID. That jumped 5 times. Who knows what it's going to be this year? But we do have a plan and we're working on it. In order for it to do, we need a community that will support us, to help us, volunteers that are willing to feed and help train. We also have people that, you know what, with all this weather that's going on, there's root rot and fence posts that need to be changed. We're only 2 people. But the cool thing about it is, if you look at our website, we're going to have opportunities for people to come out. I've worked with several kids, and you know what? When they first started, they didn't know their direction. After they came out to see the farm, they found their direction. I'm proud to say those kids, all 12 of them, are now on the honor roll. 3 of them are getting straight A's. That's something to be proud about. That is a nice thing about working within a community for a sanctuary.
Yeah. So as we started, like we said, we started during COVID. And so the world shut down. And one of we live in Three Oaks, and there's a little theater in Three Oaks called the Acorn. And they were obviously really struggling. And so they looked for people with outside space to see if they could put on some concerts and not, go under themselves. So we offered our front pasture, and they had a concert. Seeing that made us realize the next year we can do more outdoor stuff with the community. One of the musicians heard about our need to build a barn, said, let's do a big old fundraiser. I've been trapped inside. I want to play my music. I've got a lot of musician friends. We did 7 concerts in 7 weeks. And the exposure to letting people know we were there, the ability for all the musicians to play, was awesome. The year after that, we realized people came, and what they really wanted during the concerts was a tour. So that's when we opened for our open houses. Through that, Three Oaks has started having more community events coming out of COVID, and they've asked us to bring our animals that are more social so that we can share with people what's going on with the animals and let more people know what Three Oaks has to offer. There's a fiber mill that opened 2 years before we bought our property, and the alpacas need to be sheared every spring, and so we developed a relationship with them to make the yarn from their fiber, and they are now incredible supporters of us. They sponsor our activities, and we do whatever we can to collaborate together in community events. We met through one of the bands that plays for us, the owner or the founder of Dig the Dunes, which is an organization that highlights the Indiana Dunes and a lot of the activities to celebrate the lakefront. And through that, we have met other people, including the owner of Annam Cara, who is an EAL therapy provider in LaPorte. And we are working on seeing if we can develop some programming so we can do the programming both in LaPorte and at our place. So nobody has to reinvent the wheel, nobody has to burn out, we can support each other, and we can reach more people. So that's what I mean by, again, if something that's happening is only serving one side, it's out of balance, right? The balance is really about, we are a community organization and we're a nonprofit and we need support, but we know we give support back. It's just in different ways. So the one thing we don't do is monetize a lot. It's a different kind of balance that we create with people. So we just kind of wanted to say, as, again, being here, the sense of community, the sense of understanding that we're all part of something bigger is so important. So this year, we're open in July. We're going to have a couple concerts. We're going to have a fall fest. We're going to have a couple community events. Please look us up, follow us on Facebook. Come see us. Come meet these amazing creatures. It's not us, it's them.
One last story.
Oh, good. This is a surprise.
We had, one last story. We had a young girl come out with her parents. Why do we work so hard? Well, she kind of sums it up. You could tell she didn't want to be there. She brought a friend with her because she really didn't want to be there, right? And the mom wanted her there. And almost like, fix her. And it's like, whoa, we don't do that. Whoa. And I explained what the sanctuary is all about. We talked about red light, green light, how to stay grounded and stuff. And I asked the girl, what do you think? What are the questions that you have? And she goes, what makes this place so special? And I appreciated the honesty because seriously, we all have those questions. And I said, well, you know what? I don't know. Let's do a tour and find out. We took the tour. And like we do every time after a tour, we ask questions. What's your favorite animal? But I couldn't beat around the bush. I had to ask directly. So just out of curiosity, what makes our place so special? She turned around without any hesitation. She goes, you know what? This is the first place where I felt like I belonged. The parents were shocked. They just moved from Chicago to our area, right? They had no idea that their daughter was having troubles in school, finding a place to belong. The great thing about the sanctuary is communications begin. It's a space of grace. And isn't that what miracles are all about? If everyone shared their thoughts of how to make things better, the world would definitely be a better place. That's why we're so proud of our sanctuary. So.
Yeah, so we've taken that into a tagline of, knowing where you belong versus all the places where we try to fit in, right? And it's just kind of a simple thing to remember.
Yeah. How many places can you think of that you have to fit in? Mm-hmm. Compare that to how many places you can think of that you actually belong. Don't know? Come check us out.
Yeah.
Well, let's go for a walk and take a tour. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Are there any questions at this time?
We'll stick around if you have more questions.
Sure.
With the animals, because I know animals do absorb negative energy,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a way to help them release that negative energy, or do they find ways to do it on their own?
Both.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have not only the larger animals, I think they do very well. They walk it off. They get back in their routine. They can kind of balance things. And just like Dale said, how people need to learn to kind of ground. Well, animals do that kind of naturally. You see a dog that like jumps up and startles and then and then it's fine again, So there's a lot that they know how to do that, again, I think we do too, but we forgot. And so they can model that and teach that for us. And the flip side, we have one of our dogs is a therapy dog, and we monitor her because she just reads people, and she's not super exuberant anymore. She used to be when she was younger, but she will be there for 9 hours if you let her be. Mm-hmm. And so you have to pace her and say, okay, you need a break now because you're going to start getting tired. So yes, we have to be mindful, and we still have to be their caregivers and make sure that they don't take on too much. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.